what Scotland will be if it is a yes vote on Friday.
I was saying earlier, I really do feel like a big kid over this. It's like Christmas, and it's like believing in the tooth fairy. What if she really is real? What if Scotland really does get independence? What if? It would be like the biggest historical thing that we've ever lived through.
Yeah. Well, they've been fighting for many years, many years, haven't they? Not just recently kind of thing, but they've been fighting for independence for a long time.
What's the story with the chair? Isn't there a chair that, if they got independence, with this chair that's in a museum? I think the English stole it from them. That has to be returned. Yeah. Because there's some robbery. They tried to rob it back, didn't they? 70s or 80s. Yeah. I can't even remember the story about it.
Doing that, didn't they? They keep stealing all these little artifacts from other countries.
Well, if you go to the British Museum, there's nothing British about it.
No.
Everything's from every little bit.
All based on.
It's like looking at a map.
All based on tourism. It's all for tourism.
Oh yeah. It's like going to a mafia boss's house. This is a vase that I stole from this place. This is a carpet that I stole from this place. This is that prized possession I stole when I killed some of those people.
Let's not face it. Not just stole. Like viciously assaulted many people to get.
Oh yeah. This is just the recollection of it. Viciously assaulted, destroyed, enslaved, a little part of the world.
No, well, like serial killers have their trophies, don't they?
Yeah, yes.
It's the psychopath's trophy room.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Hannibal Lecter when he keeps bits of anyway. But going back to the Scotland thing, I'm frankly a bit of a unionist, to be honest. Partly because, thinking about it from a sort of slightly selfish English point of view, if Scotland leave, we're stuck with the Conservatives.
Yeah, majority of the vote is
that
Labour.
Itself terrifies me.
Yeah, because when you think about it, Scotland have always been Labour type voters. They've always kept Labour sort of within the ranks. With them gone, it is going to be Tory. We don't vote.
The NHS will be gone. If Scotland leave, Labour won't have the clout to win.
Yeah. I can understand that, but also I still feel, run Scotland, run as fast as you can.
It's like that man on that video. He stood on the car and he's saying, that England aren't against us on this. The working man in England is rooting for you to go, be brave enough to lose them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him. I'll admit I'm rooting for him, because I love the thought that we will be forced into a revolution of the system, because that is what would happen. Everything would just go crazy, and they would have to change it. They'd have no choice, and the people would then start rising, because there'd be more than just the lower echelons that have been hurt, or the people with disabilities and things like that. It'd then really start hitting the middle class, and even say the upper class. They're going to get hit hard, and
you have to think about the collapse.
They will have to. They would have to accept it. It would be a revolution of conscience, just like that. And I just think I
don't think that's why I believe they will. Westminster will win at all costs. Yeah. And I find it very strange that most votes they do, and they count, and they announce the results that night, but they've got a lot of hours between the results being given and them having all the votes in. They're not announcing it tonight, are they?
But look how important this is to the country on the percentage of voters out of the country. Isn't it something like 90-odd% of Scottish have voted?
Yeah.
And that goes to show how important this is to that country. If that's rigged, do you think either way, whether yes or no, this is not going to cause some kind of bump in the
my worry that it's going to be like the AV referendum. I mean, the AV referendum gave us the chance to finally change this degraded and decrepit voting system that we have still in this country for God knows what reason. I mean, in the 21st century, we got a voting system that allows an MP that has only 25% majority to become elected, and yet created nothing but a small hill, and then everybody forgot about it.
Yeah.
And to me, I just can't see why this Scottish referendum won't be the exact same thing. You know, a referendum is just a bit of a joke to appease the people at this moment in time and then move it on. On a part, and you reminded me what I was going to say earlier, the problem is that in Britain, we've never had a revolution, like you said. We've always stuck with the same old system. I mean, for God's sake, we're 21st century. We still have a House of Lords, which is appointed by the Prime Minister. So whoever gives the most money to the party in power becomes a Lord. We've still got the Queen.
But the House of Lords, the actual system of having the House of Lords, the way they get their seats is wrong. But having, like with the, I can't remember what they're called, where the unsociable behaviour things that they brought in, it was the House of Lords that blocked that. And they vote on, they can amend bills, and it's important to have something there that is kind of checking the work of Parliament and saying whether it's okay what Parliament's doing. It's not okay that these people are peerage, you know, that they can buy or, you know, inherit their seats, however it's done.
Well,
but buy them. Whereas if it was maybe done electing or people from your communities or however it was done a bit better, you do need that buffer zone that Parliament can't just do whatever they want.
I completely agree with you, but I mean, let's think the way I see it, and the way I'd love to see a House of Lords or whatever, or Senate or whatever you want to call it afterwards. I would love to see a house that was elected every 10 years. And the reason why I say every 10 years is because a 4-year democracy can't possibly comprehend with sustainability or long-term issues that they need to deal with. Because politicians right now always deal with what's going to get me re-elected in 4 years' time. What's going to get me re-elected in 4 years' time? It's never, they can't think far ahead because that's not in their nature, because they need to think about the next election, because it's all about self-interest. But if you remove that and make self-interest longer, i.e. a house that was elected every 10 years, they wouldn't have those issues.
They're very
deal with.
They're self-serving, though, aren't they? You know, I was reading that about the amount of MPs that rent offices from their political party. So, really, they are taking public money and putting it into their party's funding for the next election.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's not right. You shouldn't be, you know, they're always robbing Peter, the people, to pay Paul, their friends, or their party. They're so self-serving that you do need that independence.
No, and that's what I say. I do think you definitely need that independence. But, I mean, an alternative house, if we're going to think about house reform with the Lords, I think it should be a long-term democratic house that deals with long-term issues. And then obviously recall would deal with any rogue MP. I mean, the fact that recall doesn't exist is also ludicrous. How can you call yourself a democracy? As soon as an MP is elected, for those 4 years, he's untouchable.
That's got to change.
And I think that's the point. It's not how long they stay in power for, it's if they abuse that. It's like, for example, if the CEO of Barclays was caught embezzling billions from a shareholder. You think the shareholder's going to sit back and think, okay, you know, nothing we can do about it? Of course they're not. They're going to kick him out tomorrow and probably sue the crap out of him.
And that sort of system helps ensure that the people are listened to as well, because if a constituent is unhappy with their MP, it gives them the power to speak out, whereas a lot of MPs are quite flippant towards their constituents when you go for issues or you ask them to back you on a certain campaign and things. They'll go more with the party line than what their actual constituent wants.
Exactly. Yeah. 100% agree with you, and that's why recall I think is so ridiculous, so important. But I mean, it's the whole issue of democracy, because in my belief, democracy was never achieved anywhere. Because democracy is the meaning that the people are in power and have absolute say at any point in time. But we've only got say at election time, and that's even that debatable.
That's controlled by, you know, safe seats and.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know, it's debatable that that's even the case.
Yeah.
But you could argue that the only time we actually ever have the closest thing to a say is during election time. The rest of the time is no one really cares
No.
what we have to say. But that's why I think democracy as a whole needs to change.
I think the country's pretty much spoke out on fracking. Most polls say about 85% against. If that's the case, it shouldn't even really be being considered. But they're just always going to self-serve that, and that's where protesting doesn't seem to make a difference anymore.
They did that with the badges as well, didn't they? There was, I think it was like 290,000 or something. It was a stupid amount, and they still said no, we're still going to do it.
But you see, I mean, this has always been the case. You know, before the Labour Party existed in the 1900s, there was, I can't remember what the party that preceded, I can't remember what the group was called, but they went around the country getting people to sign by hand that they wanted electoral reform. They had thousands upon thousands of signatures on pieces of paper. 3 times they did that. 3 times they got double the amount the previous time. All 3 times the MPs chucked that out on a technicality, that it wasn't on the right paper, or the lines were slightly more squiggly than they should be, or because one person used the wrong colour pen, or something. All this kind of rubbish. And it's just, nothing has changed. And the fact is that, I mean, you can't talk about an evolution because it doesn't exist in politics. I think you need to have a detachment from the previous rotten system and move on to something new. You can't evolve a political system continuously. It needs to have a breakaway from the old because it's become too corrupt and too infested with whatever. Create something new.
Definitely, there's no way this system's gonna work anymore. But then with obviously with the collapse, it's gonna happen no matter what. The collapse is gonna happen. We can't keep spending like this, and we're at a massively high rate. No wonder Scotland is desperate to remove themselves from that little pocket of debt. Do you know what I mean? And we're shockingly high. We're going to hit the ground quite quickly, and I think with Scotland leaving, they bring a lot of things to the table with leaving as well, like that Trident. I can't wait to say goodbye to that bugger. That I'd love to say goodbye to that.
I wonder if Trident disappears, does that mean we're going to have more money so that people can go to school for free?
Well, I was reading a government.
We're going to have more money to spend on Tories. That's all that's going to happen while they're still in power.
I was reading a government PDF on the austerity things and that, and it was saying that we are only 40% through the cuts. We've still got 60% to go. You know, can you imagine how hard things are going to be when they get that bad? That's how much they're propping up this collapse.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think even the politicians like David Cameron, they know what's happening is happening. They're grabbing what they can get before it all goes to pot, and they're going to continue to do that. They're securing themselves and setting themselves up. I would say they're nice and happily awaiting the collapse at the minute, because I would most likely, with the amount of money that they've been raking in from the poor and from the society and from everything that they've been doing, they'll have the provisions they need for what they know is imminent. You know, they could have at least given people the chance. And I think Scotland are going to have exactly they're going to have a lot to work on before they get anywhere near being able to, they've got a lot of poverty in Scotland still.
Yeah.
So they've got to deal with that kind of stuff as well, haven't they? We're all going to take a fall. But do you think with Scotland leaving that they're not going to be dragged down at the hip so quickly? And with this oncoming war,
I mean, I worry about the collapse with Scotland. That I really do hope that they go it. I'm not saying I don't, but I worry that how will we cope without the oil? How much does the Scottish oil generate?
Well, how much would people who are already ready for that kind of thing? This is what the movement is about, isn't it? Is preparing people to be aware of what's happening. It's not turning around and going, "Oh, the Illuminati's all going to kill you. Do something." We're actually physically saying to people, "Get some seeds, get some, water provisions, get things ready for your family, so that if the electric does go off, you've sorted solar power." All right, a lot of people can't do that, but the services we're setting up every step of the way. advocacies, things like that. These should be popping up right now. Advocacies ready for things to be set in motion to protect us all from, you know, really hitting rock bottom. Because when the system goes down, so do things like, that's when things like social services and schools and that get real grim. That's when they're going to get real grim.
All of this, it's like in the Middle Ages. All of that disappeared. You know, schooling. What was that at that point? You know, healthcare. You must be joking. A bath, never. But the thing we got to also realize is that, you know, this collapse, whether it happens or not, whether it's imminent or not, it's only in Western countries. And when I say West, I mean Britain and the US.
Yeah.
Because if you look at places like Iceland.
Would you not? What about Sweden?
Sweden, I mean, if you look at, for example, Iceland are almost self-sufficient now.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving towards a moneyless economy. They're going to have people that are able to go to the shops, pick up whatever food they need, and take it home without the need of exchanging money. Mm-hmm. They're going to have the first real moneyless or communist, whatever you want to call it, society. I mean, that is amazing.
And their leader isn't dead. That's shockingly amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just the fact that it's more Western than they can't get away with it? Like
I think that it's like, the times. I think it's the times. If something happened to him now, the whole world would be screaming.
Yeah. I think it doubly means as well, because he's not in the Middle East. I think they cannot get away with. They'd have to come up with. They've already got, you know.
Yeah, but look at John F. Kennedy. The Kennedys, you know, they shot them.
They blamed on the mafia. They had the mafia.
Shoot anyone.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that if they want to, they will.
Yeah.
But if he suddenly died now, the whole world would be like, yeah, we know. And it's gone so deep in the culture. They've given, but you know,
the whole world
if the people will not accept another solution now. I don't think
the whole world knows that Gaza was an absolute ethnic cleansing. Not even an ethnic cleansing. It was just a fucking cleansing. Just a cleansing of the land. Everybody knows they are war criminals, but nothing is still being done. So even if they did go into Iceland and Obama stood there and shot someone in the face, I still think the fuckers would get away with it. I really do. I can't see why Tony Blair's not locked up. I can't see why the things haven't been done. We know they're doing it, but no one's being locked up, because I think the fluoride has really, really worked.
I think that they know they would. The whole system's too corrupt. Even if they.
But I mean, what I was thinking of is what we're seeing is, I mean, the collapse seems terrifying, or from that point of view, because we're in those countries that are in that dying empire of sorts. Because I mean, the empires that are dying it's the West, it's Britain, it's America, it's France, it's Italy, it's Germany to an extent, it's European Union. But there are other countries. I mean, look at South America, for example. It's blossoming. They have a socialist agenda as well. They've be able to mix socialism and capitalism. In Iceland, they are well into the future.
Yeah.
The Russians and Chinese, we've consistently heard very, very horrible things. You know, you think of Russia and China, you think of these horrible nations. Realistically speaking, and I'm going to probably sound like a communist for saying this, realistically speaking, how can we look at Putin and see him as a bad man, and then look at Bush or Obama and think of them as good people?
Russia
and China haven't gone into countries, funded extremist organizations to fuel their own gain, screwed up half the world and in the Middle East. Putin and China may not be the best in regards to human rights in their own country, but they haven't gone around screwing up half the world as well as their own people.
But if you look at just like products and everyday life of the Western world, we have what is planned obsolescence. In places like Russia and things, they have to build things to last. It's part, you know, whereas we say it doesn't matter, they take that in some ways that they do hold corporations and things a lot more accountable than we do.
Yeah,
these countries, you know, like a washing machine in Russia has to last 25 years.
It goes to show, but you look at that light bulb theory, that one where you're no longer allowed to, you can't have a light bulb that lasts for more than so many, you know, years.
1,000 and 500 hours because the cartel will fine you.
Yeah.
The light bulb, because they've had ones that never go out. There's one in America that you can watch, the world's longest burning bulb, and it's in a fire station, and that's been going over 100 years.
But didn't they buy that so that it couldn't be reduplicated elsewhere? And then
oh no, that was the one that they made in Berlin. They made one in Berlin, and they brought all the rights to it so that it can never be put into production. It's just sat in a museum.
just so that the disposable system that we live in now can thrive. I find it absolutely amazing. And when people, and do you know what, the thing is, if we look at stuff like that, that goes to show we actually do have the resources. We do have, I don't know what it is, but the energy, there are total ways of creating energy. There are things that have been designed which would give us each the opportunity to be really economic and really easy flow with energy. There's just no need to be, I think oil, obviously, have you seen the list of things that oil makes and what we use oil for? A lot of those things could be replaced. Like, you know, you've got hemp, you've got all those kind of things, loads of them. I don't think we would suffer if we were allowed to start structuring it and doing it now ourselves.
But the problem again is, the problem isn't in the planet, because the planet can feed the humanity 5 times over. The planet has enough on it to create energy to last billions and trillions of years. It's because we're not allowed to use it. It's the same thing. It's like you have all this food, but it's caged away and locked up. You're not allowed to access it because of money. Money has become a restriction.
And the waste, the disproportionate waste of, you know, how much food England throws away compared to how much food Africa has to eat. You know,
have you heard of the carbon eating plastic?
Yes.
There are now these factories that are set up specifically to suck carbon molecules out of the atmosphere and then turn that into plastic.
See, they're amazing.
Green plastic.
A new organism or something has been found that is eating plastic and breaking it down.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
we know so little of our own planet, and like 70% of the ocean hasn't even been explored. So God knows what's under there.
Oh no, there was that thing that they found, wasn't there? That bloke made, where you can turn seawater into fresh water. That in itself is revolutionary.
Salt water, they said.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I think it's things like that that are gonna.
It's a changing concept, isn't it? Like building, you know, it's very nice that you make washing machines for us, but let's now have washing machines that are going to last a lifetime, because I'm sure we've got the technology, and think about the resources that we are using, or be more recyclable, you know, not just dump it in other countries.
Yeah. To be honest, we just need to get rid of these governments, the tyrannical, consuming, capitalist governments and corporations. They just need to go. I think that's one thing that is the one thing that Occupy kind of noted, wasn't it? 99% and the 1%. The ones that own everything and run everything are the ones that need to go, because the ones that are being paid and do everything and their lackeys would soon change their minds if they realised that there was something better for them and their family, and realise that it's not the way to go. It's just because they're forced to work in this system and forced to be in this system.
Yeah, because they want to. They're survivors.
People like David Cameron, they're people, right? Yeah, all right. He might be a psychopath. I don't know. I can't evaluate his mental situation. But at the same time, they are people, and they go for what they can get and benefits out of life. Now, if we surrounded them with people with good consciences and they weren't no longer in power, those people would change.
Of course they would.
You know, because they're human. But humans can't help but change when their environments adapts. That's psychology. That's philosophy. Do you know what I mean? It's everything that we're built on.
But
they'll change.
It's like, for example, if you put money out of the question, I'm pretty sure that David Cameron would love to yeah, more social services out there if money wasn't the option. If money wasn't available, because well, who wants to be hated for no reason?
Yeah.
You're hated, but you have loads of money because money gives you godlike powers in the society. Capitalism has become so rotten that it's actually unfair to call capitalism. The natural progression of capitalism is fascism, I think.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
you
most
have a
definitely.
ruling elite that effectively become almost like gods because money gives them the power to kill, to enslave, to destroy, whatever they want to do.
Well, in what day and age have
And
we allowed
people would say,
a country like Israel to turn around and say that they now have a policy where that certain houses they're not allowed to have Arabs in them? What day and age have we allowed that to happen? Do you know what day and age have we allowed this mass genocide? Where it was so appalling with Hitler. You know, it's gone way beyond that. It's gotten to the point where we are going to be like that very, very soon. And there's still places in the world that are exactly like that. There's pure racism everywhere. Everywhere now.
one thing I come up against a lot is like, yeah, but you're all living in fantasy and we need money. Otherwise, how are we going to have a police force or this, that, and the other? But the thing is that it's getting past the idea of working because you have to and working because it's like an ant colony all has their jobs and you all do something to better community. I think that you'd still have police or a community but they would be acting maybe more on law rather than trying to make money out of people.
There would be no giant corporations to make money out of, because I think that's the first thing we would need to take a head dive. The banks and the corporations, there should be that rule. I think that is one that always people need to bring up if they're going to start, is the one where they say that the employer cannot earn more than 10 times more than its lowest paid employer. I think that is a rule that everyone could adhere by.
But I think that a change in society and a cashless society would bring down crime rates in itself.
Yeah.
Bring down mental illness a hell of a lot.
Most crime is all financially fueled because they've gotten to the brink of starvation. You look at how many people that are in jail are actually psychopaths or mass murderers?
They're in politics.
But the majority of people in prison are either to do with drugs, which is questionable if that should be illegal or not. That's one thing. But the other thing is that most of them are down for stealing because they're poor as hell.
Yeah.
And the way I see a moneyless society, and again, you can use Iceland as an easy example because they're going for this, is that a moneyless society would not mean that everybody would just suddenly stop doing anything. What it means is that everybody can do what they actually genuinely want to do. So, for example, all those fashion designers or all those car manufacturers, all those technicians that couldn't go into those job roles because they didn't know somebody in the industry or they were too poor to get that degree, would then be able to go in and get that technology and actually do that job. Could you imagine the amount of weird clothes that would come out into the world? Imagine the amount of weird cars that would come out into the world.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the obsolescence, right? These people, when they train to be designers, are actually taught how to make a product not last. And if you had a cashless society, the products that we'd have would be amazing. They'd be phenomenal because you would have the best of the best because the competition would be high. You know, if everybody wants to be fashion designers, you know, the best of the best is going to come to the top. And technology and things like that are going to go leaps and bounds because people with passion for it are going to get the opportunity for it. The discoverer of, I mean, we know about cannabis and cancer, but let's say for those who don't believe that works, what if a child living in poverty in Africa has the greatest scientific mind and has the cure, has the ability to find the cure for something like cancer? He's never going to get the opportunity in this world, the way it is, to reach its full potential.
Well, we have to admit
the whole human race back.
We have to admit the government, not only are they, we know they're damaging us, but they are clearly giving us social and emotional development delays. It is a clear delay in social and emotional development by stunting somebody's ability and opportunities to excel themselves, is by doing what they would class as a reason to take a child from a parent. You know, they could say to a parent, right, you're not taking your child out enough. You're not spending quality time with your child. We think you're disrupting. You're giving them a failure to thrive, and you're socially and emotionally abusing them and neglecting them. Well, that is what our government does on a daily basis. That is what their whole system's built on, is socially, you know, cutting us off, making it absolutely unavailable to do opportunities that allow us and our children to do anything in life.
And if you take that one step further, you know, they go on about with the ISIS and the parents taking the children off for like extremist views, which at the moment they're using terror. But what when they're using being an activist, because that's domestic terrorism in some way. And, you know, the biggest extremist and mind bender and manipulator is the government itself. It's the whole social services system that you would put them in. You would take them away, but for doing something that you're doing yourself. Forcing your opinions and your ways through manipulation. How many programs have the government got on controlling public opinion? On, you know, they have set steps that they take to, you know, get the outcome that they want, because they can manipulate us through TV, through media and various things to get what they want all the time. They are the biggest manipulators.
If you were Scotland, would you want to be in the UK? When you talk about the UK, we've just described pretty much just what I can't even say we've even gone into it. We haven't even dipped our toe in the puddle of corruption that they've created, and then we ask, why would Scotland want to be independent?
You see, if I was Scottish, I would say get the hell with this place. But because it's just terrifying to think that we're going to have the Tories at the next election, it's just...
Yeah, I think
I'll bring
that will
myself
be...
to hope that they can leave for the simple fact that we're going to be screwed for generations.
Do you think that we're going to even get to a next election if that's the sort of way? I do not think that people are going to starve for much longer, or be forced into 2 bedrooms because they can't afford a third, or be taken and sanctioned and made to work for free. I don't think these people are going to put up with it much longer, whether they can connect or not at the minute, whether they're organised or not. People will come together. I think it's in our blood. It's not our blood. I think it's in our conscience. We will come together. We will find a way. And I think I've got faith in that. I think eventually that we will. When things get real shit.
But it's going to be hard times ahead. Hella hard times ahead.
But hard times can bring out the best in people, like the Blitz spirits, how neighbours got together, like the miners' strikes, mining communities come together.
Me and Pete have already decided our sort of roles and things. We're like, right, we're going to bugger off, right, we're going to live without doing this, we're going to do that, but we'll do it together. Do you know what I mean? We want others to do it with us. We want to do it as a community. We want to do this. And you look at that, and if it wasn't for this movement and all this crap that happened, we wouldn't have found each other, and all of us people wouldn't have found each other. Maybe this is what was needed to bring humanity back to where it needed to be, and realise that we can't do it by pitching against each other. Competition has been the most evil thing injected into society. You know,
the problem with I have now saying about humanity is that it's unfair all other countries to say humanity, because it's only us. It's only in Western society are we so blind to being able to move forward. And it's because I think we've trapped ourselves in this system. Or rather, we have been trapped by the elites into the system. Because ironically, we fought against fascism in the Second World War. And then our countries became that which they fought against. Because we are now in a fascist government. If you look at the real meanings of the word fascist, you know, with an elite grouping of people that make all the decisions, that's exactly what we're living in. America more so than us, but that's exactly the same thing we're living in.
If we'd have reported,
reaches its end, but refuses to let go.
Yeah, if we'd have reported on some of the cases of racism that we're experiencing, even just in the UK at the minute, 10 years ago, there would have been more of an outcry. I can walk down the street now, and all I hear is racism. It's, you know, and whether people can say, oh, it's not racism, it's religionism. No, it's not. because
But-
they look at anyone in a headscarf and say, oh, they're Muslim. They've got to be Muslim. They're wearing a headscarf. They've got to be a terrorist. You know, they've been primed.
It's exactly
These
what
bosses have
Hitler
been
did, though.
primed. Huh?
It's exactly what Hitler did. Hitler, they were coming out of a recession, and he was like blaming the Jews and blah blah blah. That's how you, and we've got it like now with people on benefits. I think there was 20-something thousand have been attacked for being on benefits, and we've got it with the Muslims and terrorists.
Mm.
And it's a great way for governments to shift the blame away from themselves by blaming a small group of people. And people are so desperate in their own situations that they will they are just looking for someone to blame, and they will grasp at any straws to blame that person. That's how you get away with it. That's how governments get away with it.
Do you think people are capable of accepting the fact, if this is allowed to go on, that it will be to the point where you'll have spot checks and your basements will be ripped up in case there are any Arabs hiding in them? Or do you think people will actually realise that it's going to get to that stage if we don't do something, that it's not long ago? It wasn't long ago.
I think you'll have to get
the thing with England,
that stage, because the English are way too passive. It needs to be something very, very. I think the NHS has to be completely destroyed before the English mobilise.
I think that to that extreme would be quite hard in England, because I mean, we don't even like national ID cards. When that idea was brought up, people went mad. I don't think they're going to very much like a system where if you was Muslim, everybody had to carry papers to prove that you was English. Because
but they do it. They'll do it. They'll do it.
I don't know. They would not do the ID that they would. No, but the people wouldn't. That's why Parliament dropped it, because the people were like, no way are we carrying an ID card around with us. And that's the average.
Yeah, they did kick off.
A working class man is not going to want to carry papers around, because he understands the issue with that.
Yeah, but like you said, most people went against fracking, and then it got overturned and they did what they want, and then people went, oh shit, and now they're taking over all the fracking sites. They're destroying it. There is no, they're going to frack. It don't matter what we do, they're going to frack. They're going to kill the country. They're going to kill it. To be honest, this government needs taken down before any fracking drill is put into this land.
But that's the thing, that if we would allow it,
it's over.
I mean,
if we would allow it,
in this country, anywhere for that matter, that is insanity.
But we aren't like America, and it's not good in America. There've been people being ill and workers and things like that. But we do not have the space, anywhere near the space that America has. And these pads aren't just one pad; they are lots in a small area, aren't they? Mm-hmm. We are not like America.
Ourselves to America, for God's sake, that's the worst example to use as a country.
Yeah.
Let's try copying Iceland, or Switzerland, or anywhere else.
Yeah, I think she's right that they will frack regardless of what people want, because they want the money, and that's the sad state of affairs. Hello, two Kikis.
Hello. I don't know what happened. I got booted out.
But they will go ahead regardless, because that's how politicians view people now. Like you were saying, just purely at election time, we'll give them a few, oh yes, I'll do this because that's what you want to hear. And then as soon as elections are over, we'll delete all that off the internet so no one can find it again. So you can't hold you to it.
Tipex's over it. God, they're a wily bunch, aren't they? They really are. But I think personally, we're not far, and I think that's why you've seen, if you've noticed, I've not seen it half as much now, where I didn't leave a call. I've not seen it half as much now, where people are online saying, all right, you've got a few snufflers on there, but where people are turning around and going, why are we not doing something? Why are we not when's this revolution happening? We know the revolution's happening now. We know we're stepping into World War III. We know there's a collapse about to happen. We know all that shit now. There's nobody in doubt on what's happening, and I think people are actually worried about saying, when is this going to happen now? Because it's going to happen. It is going to happen. And I'm scared. I'm a little scared. I won't say that I'm going to allow that to get to me, but I'm a little worried. I worry when I walk down the streets and I look at a little child and think, is your mum on benefits? Are you going to get through this? Are you ready? And I look at those little kids and I really feel shit for them and what they've got coming in their future, and whatever way it goes, it's not going to be good. Don't matter what way it looks, they're going to have a shit future.
Yeah, here we are. I mean, forget getting on the property ladder if you are born in my generation. It's just never going to happen. You know, and the fact that you can't own your own space. I'm not talking about land here. I'm talking about your own living space, your own right to have space where you can actually just live, just be.
Well, I was saying to my brother the other day that we have so much, like we have microwaves and kettles and washing machines and phenomenal amount of stuff around our house, but we never look at the sacrifice that stuff has cost us. Not only our freedom, but our ability to look after ourselves. They have taken up, by the ease of having all this stuff, they've taken away our basic survival techniques.
Do you think that might be why?
How to build a house. We wouldn't know how to build a house.
Do you think that might be why I hate using this term, lower class, middle class, because at the minute we are classed. We are in a class war. Simple. So do you think that's maybe why the middle class, the lower class, and the people who are fighting, the activists and people like that, are going, yes, we need change, because they know, half of us, I'm sorry, but who here has a dishwasher and manages to afford these like luxuries? And I don't know about you, but I really did not have a washing machine for a long time and had to do it in the bath and hang it all over the house. And
I had a twin tub. I have one of the old twin tubs, and my washing machine now is absolutely lovely. It's really nice. But I won it. I won it.
She fucking wins everything.
If I don't win it, I don't have it.
Everything is won. Which is crazy. Yeah, but do you think that's possibly why the middle class are, even though they're struggling now, they don't want a revolution? Nobody's stupid. A revolution is going to be painful, no matter whether we need one or not. Whether you'd class it as winning or losing, it's going to be painful, because the transition is always going to be hard for everyone.
I mean, in the old days, we would have known how to build a house, a den or something, as, a basic survival thing. If now we wouldn't even know where to start on anything like that. Even some people growing your own stuff, they wouldn't even know where to begin. We've lost so much of our natural survival instincts. And that's the price we've paid for the modern comforts that we have. And it's very nasty, because we've gone from having them for comfort to having them out of necessity, because we couldn't survive without them. I mean, how many people couldn't survive without a cooker, without a refrigerator? Whereas all of these things in the old days, you would have known how to build a stone oven.
See, when I was moved into this house now, because I got emergency house, I got moved into this house. I wouldn't call it a house. But when I got moved in, I had nothing, absolutely nothing. So last year, I went for 6 months without a cooker, without a table, without a chair. We don't even have a front room. We don't have none of that. We're just like poked into this little box, and we just learnt to do things differently. We all through the summer we're barbecuing like corn on the cobs and jacket potatoes, and then through the when it got a little bit colder, we started using like different things like the slow cooker and things like that. You just look and think there is definitely other ways. I managed to live without even a slow cooker. I did it all on the barbecue, all raw food. We just lived off raw food.
It's like the American Indians, who all they needed was a bit of cloth to make a teepee, fire, and that's all they needed, and they just lived off the land, hunting animals if need be to kill for skin and whatnot. Nothing was ever wasted. If they killed because they desperately needed all of the animal, or else they left it alive and they cultivated and whatnot.
Yeah.
They moved, didn't they? They moved with the land. They moved with the seasons and the land. What the land would provide, they would move with it. They would know that there'd be buffalo here at that time, and maybe the fruit, the corn or whatever at that time.
Yeah, but we've lost that relationship with the land totally, haven't we?
As soon as the as that time was called, as soon as the white man came to North America, all the they just killed all the buffaloes for their what was it, for their horn? No, for their skulls. I think they wanted them for.
I think they did it just because the Indians relied on them.
Yeah, no different to the way that Israel is spraying Palestine with sewerage. They're just horrible people. I don't think we'll ever understand why they actually do it. Sometimes I think they just they're not always kind about
colonise, isn't it? Because I don't think we realise how many there was when they went over there. We're not talking about.
We actually wrote an article on this. That the reason why it's been proven by WikiLeaks, the reason why this war started is nothing to do with Hamas, nothing to do with rockets, because Israel couldn't care less about those things.
No.
And they went there and used Hamas as an excuse to invade, to purposely remove the people there, to create a new Israeli city that will be based next to a gas reserve. It's all about resources.
Yeah.
That politician, he was very blatant about that on his Facebook wall, and he said he wanted concentration camps for the people fighting and standing up against them.
And British Gas have got
deport them.
British Gas have got their fingers in that pie.
Oh, of course.
They wanted to deport them, and those that would be allowed to stay would have to swear an allegiance to Israel.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
And he blatantly put that up on his Facebook, unashamedly.
But you know what I find? I see that as massively ironic. The fact that the Jewish state is employing the tactics that were used directly against Jewish people to eradicate them, they're using themselves to eradicate another human being.
I read this article earlier, and it said on August the 26th, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was agreed, bringing the fragile war to an end that killed 2,150 Palestinians, mostly civilians, and 73 Israelis, mostly soldiers. Since then, Hamas has not fired a single rocket attack at Israel or done anything to break the terms of the conditions of the ceasefire. Israel has done the following: annexed another 1,500 acres of West Bank land, seized 56 million of PA tax revenue, not lifted any legal blockades, broken ceasefire by firing at fishermen on 4 separate occasions, detained 6 fishermen, killed a 22-year-old a week before his wedding, killed a 16-year-old with a rubber bullet to the head, tortured a prisoner to the point of hospitalisation, refused 13 members of European Parliament entry into Gaza, detained at least 127 people across the West Bank, including a 7-year-old boy in Hebron and 2 children aged 7 and 8 taken from the courtyard of their house, and tear-gassed their mother. Continued to hold 33 members of the Palestinian Legislative Council in prison, continued to hold 500 prisoners in administration detention without charge or trial, destroyed homes near Jerusalem, leaving 14 people homeless, unveiled a new plan to forcibly remove thousands of residents from Jerusalem with 2 purpose-built townships, destroyed a dairy factory whose profit supported an orphanage, destroyed a family home, making 5 children homeless, destroyed a house in Jerusalem where aid supplied on route to Gaza was being stored, destroyed a well, set fire to an olive grove, raided a health centre and nursery school, causing extensive damage, destroyed a swathe of farmland by driving tanks over it, ordered the dismantle of a small monument in Jerusalem to Mohammed Abu, I can't pronounce his second name, who was murdered in the July by Israel lynch mob. Yeah. continued building a
IDF,
vast tunnel network
basically.
under, continued to build a vast tunnel network under Jerusalem, stormed the Al-Qasr Mosque compound with a group of far-right settlers, assisted hundreds of settlers in storming the tombs in Nabu, and prevented students from entering university, firing stun guns and grenades, rubber bullets to those who tried to get into the university, and earned millions from the reconstruction material for Gaza, where 100,000 people need their destroyed homes to be rebuilt, and the total bill and profit to Israel is estimated at 7.9 billion.
Wow, that genocide paid well.
And it's just,
pay well.
how shocking is that? You know, they go on about Hamas, the terrorists and all things like that. Now Hamas aren't firing, but they're getting away.
This is I can't believe how brainwashed it is. You know, to the point where we, you know, I think I mentioned it before, where I did a rally for peace with Gaza, and one of the people who was working with me and myself ended up at the police station. He was approached by the anti-terror police, and we were both asked whether we were joining Hamas, all because we did a peace rally where a policeman sprayed another policeman in the face with CS gas, and it was classed as being, it got out of control, so we must be terrorists. You know, you look at that and you think, what? So I can walk around and parade around in an Israeli flag and I'll be fine, yet they're the ones that are actually the terrorists.
It's like back in Britain before the Second World War, if you had a Nazi flag, you were fine. There you have a Russian communist flag, and you'd be shot.
Yeah.
And yet, who was the worst regime? You know, well, arguably the worst regime's America, but.
Yeah, and it goes to show how brainwashed society actually is globally. Yeah. Because it's not just us.
Yeah, because
it's everywhere.
Every time Israel attacks Palestine like that, it is followed with a great big land grab. Now, where is the international community saying no? You know, enough is enough. You do this all the time. You like, but you know.
Yeah, and you look
it's
at it.
So
each
transparent.
Country,
we knew that they would do it. After
each country has done it, and what does the government always do? Look at Greece. Look at Argentina. Look at Italy. Look at what a government does as soon as its country is in absolute dire need. They put their foot on their head and they suck the life out of the only commodity they've got left, and that's us. And that's what our government's going to do if we continue. I'm going to get cut off again in a minute, I've got a feeling. That's what we're going to do if we continue to let the government stand power. And I don't think that it would be wrong. And I believe countries like Russia and China and that would stand by us in a throw over of government. I believe they would, because if we walked in there calmly and with no violence, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be Ukraine. We don't want that shit to roll like that. If we were firm about it and stood together as a collective, yeah, I reckon we could save our country and save what we've got left, so we can stand against, you know, the global corruption.
I mean, a lot of politicians, they can't get their head round why people are so disengaged with politics now. They think that they can say some of the more of their smarmy shit, and that's going to change people's minds. But that's exactly what we've had enough of.
I think that's a lie.
I think we've outgrown them.
We're more engaged with politics now than we've ever been. I think it's a lie.
The system.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people are disillusioned with it. They don't bother to vote. They don't bother. You know.
I don't think they don't bother.
But not bothering to vote and not being engaged with politics are two very different things.
But what we see as activists and how politicians see it is two different things. Politicians have their heads so far up their backsides that they can't see, they can't understand, they can't even. It's not nothing that they say is going to change.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, I've had debates with politicians and organisations about this. Like, well, why don't you stand by the fact that you can only get them talking about politics if you get them to vote? And it's like, well, no. Screw it. First of all, you got them understanding and talking about politics as a subject, as a debate about current issues, whatever those issues that may interest you may be. Then that's up to you. But political engagement is about having a debate about something that's going on and doing something about it, be it protest, be it activism, talking. That's politics. The vote is
And,
just something we
and I think they completely underestimate. I don't think they underestimate. They like to plug it that Britain has lost interest in politics, and I've learnt more about politics than I know a lot of the people who play bingo every night do. Do you know what I mean? I understand that people like that have lost faith in politics, but I don't even think it's that. I think they just don't care. I think they just don't care.
I think they've lost faith in politicians, because politicians again and again have not served the people, so they don't see any point in voting for them or anything. So it's the system that they're disillusioned with, and they want to. I think evolution-wise, we've outgrown the current system. We've said before that every time comes to an end, and I think as consciously
stand down, Elizabeth, stand down.
As consciousness rises, and we look at wider other things like Iceland, and we see there are other possibilities. In
what day and age do we actually need this sovereignty? This whole Queen rolling around on a big gold flipping carriage that could, between a lot of these filthy rich royals and government, we could get our money back. Just by taking it back off them. Look at that little carriage. Britain's in poverty, but the Queen is rolling around in a pimped up flipping carriage, right? And nobody is saying nothing. What's wrong with a frigging Beamer, mate? What's wrong with that?
That's where our struggles come from, is funding all this, like government offices, government, the Parliament, their housing bills, their mortgages,
the 10% raise they just recently got. It's like, for example, I mean, it's like the French Queen, I think it was Anne Boleyn, that her people were starving, and the minister asked her, well, what do we do? And he said, I'll let them eat cake. So out of touch, she has no idea what's going on in her own country, and I think the Queen is exactly the same, as disillusioned, as clueless as every royal has been, because once you have everything and you think you are above human, because a royal can only be a royal if they think they are above human, because no human being can sit on the throne and expect to be paid for by people that actually genuinely work for a living and be okay with that. I would be riddled with guilt.
I'd be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed. And look at
every time Benefit Street come on telly, or every time David Cameron said something negative about Scrounged, I would squirm in my chair. I'd be thank God they're not looking at me, because I would feel a Scrounger.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, they are the true, honest scroungers of our society. They suck the life out of our system, and it baffles me. There's 10,600 deaths in 2000, between 2010 and 2011, was it, of disabled people in poverty as a direct result of disabled people in poverty, right? And just rolling around in that wagon. Jesus, no wonder. I can't believe that we're allowing this. We do not need a queen. All the patriots out there, we don't need a queen. I'm sorry, we don't. Not in this era. We can't afford it. It needs to go. Yeah. Simple. It needs to go.
It's a similar date as well.
She could be a celebrity. Go find some museum to sit in. Look at the queen that was. It should be an ancient antique to look at. But without a really flash carriage.
Most countries have lost their royals. We're very slow in this country.
Because we never had a revolution.
The French. No, I think it's installed in them that's why we're important, because we've still hung on to our traditional methods. I think that's what society's been taught. We're important because we've still got that. They base their patriotism on it.
During A-level, was exactly how I was taught. It's like, oh look, we're so great because we evolved. No, what really happened is the rich thought, fuck, these people are getting aware. I know, let's give some of them the vote. That'll calm them down a little bit. Then let's give them a little bit more. Now they want healthcare. Okay, let's give them that. It's not going to cost that much. We can take it back in a couple of centuries. And then, okay, they want benefits. All right, let's give them that. They won't notice it gone after a while. It's all to appease the poor. It's never been a long-term evolution because it doesn't work like that. It's just a way of appeasing the poor. They always thought, I'm pretty sure, that when healthcare and social benefits came in, I'm pretty sure the politicians, the rich, believed, okay, let's give it to them now. In a couple of generations, we'll remove it. They won't even notice. I forget why they got it in the first place.
But it gets so installed in you. I remember at school when Prince William was born, we were asked to write names to Lady Diana as suggestions, and we got letters back. And even my kids now, they get, like with the Jubilee and things, have had like letters back. It's so installed into the system, and we don't mind that they scrounge and we pay for them. It's a bit like if we was to go to a tube station and there'd be a homeless person, and then there'd be somebody dressed up quite well to do, and they ask people for change for the phone or something, they probably get it given to them a lot more than the homeless person who actually needed it. It's like a psychological.
But that's exactly what
it's
it is,
okay
isn't
to
it?
give
It's a
to the
posh
rich.
person with
It's
lots
okay
of money asking
That's okay.
for money and getting it. Whereas the poor person, no, oh God, no, you can't have it because you need it. Ugh.
It's like with how much stuff do famous people get sent free? The people who can afford to buy stuff. The whole system's just like, yeah, but you might not never give to charity. Do you know what I mean? But
charity. They give to charities that are their own charities to tax avoid, but apart from that, it's like what was it, that celebrity that a load of celebrities got caught because a lot of celebrities, when they have kids, they set up a charity that is for the benefit of disadvantaged kids going into an education, and when it turns out it's to be a trust fund for their kids' college fund.
That's terrible.
That's really bad.
See, that's the thing, right? Poor people are the most looked down on, right? But they're probably a lot more honest.
They're obviously a lot more honest.
Because we wouldn't do that shit.
You know what's funny? It reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mm.
It reminds me of that Jack Sparrow quote when he says, "You can always trust a dishonest man to be dishonest. It's the honest ones you got to worry about."
Yeah.
And in society, we think that the rich are always the honest ones, when in reality they're not. And you see the poor and you think, God, look at him dressed. He's obviously dishonest. When in reality, well, he is what he is. He may rob and steal to get by, but that's because he has to. He's forced to do so.
He's But
he's obviously only doing it to survive. Otherwise, he'd have the big house.
Yeah, we obviously push to a point, and also we're not breaking rules. These are stupid rules for jog on. If I owned a shop, there'd be no way I would turn somebody away that walked into my shop and said, I'm hungry and I haven't got any money. There is no way I would let that person walk out of that shop empty-handed, right? They tackle the fuckers to the ground. They're like, all right, you're going to prison for 8 years because you're fucking hungry. It's like,
begging.
I'm sorry.
What's his name?
I'll stop.
Supermarkets poison food to not give it to tramps.
Yeah.
Homeless people.
Yeah. Yeah, we're wrong. It's all wrong. It's all just totally wrong. It's laughably wrong because I hope that we get to a certain point where our generations, if we get to that point, can turn around and go, what a fucking ludicrous era. Why would they do that? Robin Hood has become like Robin Hood is just over and done now. That's been made over. You've got the Sheriff of Nottingham's just nothing compared to these guys.
Sheriff of Nottingham is like a saint compared to these guys.
I know.
He's actually a pretty nice guy compared to these guys.
They only stopped like boiling people in hot water and that because it wasn't civilized. They sit there and say, oh yeah, these people, they do that, but Jesus, the British Empire and the royalty and the kings and queens, they're sick, absolutely sick. The things that they used to do to people. We would be boiled, we could be boiled, we could be burnt at the stake, or we could be just like literally. I think they used to do that thing, didn't they? Where they used to hang you over and over and over.
Drawn and quarter.
Yeah, because it
hung, drawn and quartered. Yeah. My granddad, great granddad was hung, drawn and quartered. He was 80 years old. Hung, drawn and quartered at 80. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy, and that's not that long ago, guys. That ain't that long ago, and they're all quibbling about the death penalty in America, and we're all. I think it was 51% of the people who took part in the survey said yes, bring back the death penalty. Well, you've got Britain First running around going, bring back the death penalty for paedophiles. Do you know what I mean? You wonder who Britain First really are, didn't you?
It's like, for example, the Chinese. They're no wonder they're angry, because they're industrializing, so of course they're going to create some sort of pollution. British Empire polluted half the world. I mean, London was a smog most of the year round. We were industrializing, but we're easy to forget now because we've passed that stage. The Chinese only started to industrialize quite recently, because before then we enslaved them.
Yeah.
And treated their country like a playground. It's disgusting. I mean, yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? This whole system, and it is. I think when they go by eras and ages and that, like I'm confuddled with all sorts of shits and ways it can go. I can't even tell you that I think that's the right way or what's going to happen. I can just go by what at the moment it kind of is before something changes. But you look at how it is. There's absolutely no way. We are entering the age of Aquarius, and that's all about moon shifts and star shifts, and we've got the climate change happening. There is the risk of we are really fucked really with the weather, but I think that's all supposed to happen, and I think they mapped everything that was going to happen by things, astrology and by the stars. God help you, if you look at the stars, you might actually learn a bit of history. But you look at it like that, and we are literally scratching the balls of the shift of the era, and we are in a massive moment right now. We're in a massive moment. We're living through something that people are just going to sleep the whole way through, and then they're going to go, oh, what happened? But
I do think it's like crunch point, depending on what we do as people to what the outcome's going to be, whether we will be a more like Iceland way of life, or whether we will be more fascist, extreme fascist. Like
Iceland won't be able to survive if it takes over. Iceland will be conquered if that happens. We're all at risk now. I think we're all at risk. I think we're World War III, aren't we?
What I'm saying is, at the end, in the future of what will come next, is that either we will become like less about money and more spiritual, or we will be more controlled. More control.
I think the two discussions that have been around since Marx's time, capitalism, fascism or communism, is still very much alive. Change the words if you want, but the debate's still the same. Is it going to be money, or is it going to be people? Is it going to be fascism, or is it going to be communism? That's where I think the debate lies, is that where's the next society going to come from? Is it a form society where everyone's hated upon unless you're super rich, or the UKIP, or is it going for us trying to do? And I think that's where the crucial point is. I mean, the rest is immaterial. Because where do we go from here?
Yeah. Do you have like any kind of, what do you think would be, do you think the next sort of era, how do you think it will head towards? Do you think we're going to be, what do you think?
Who, me? Well,
no.
Matteo.
Both of you, I suppose, yeah. Oh. I know you already, that's why I'm like, I already know what you think.
Well, I'm a fantasist, so I like to think we'll be like Venus Project, Venus Project, and more consciously and spiritually evolved, and a return to nature, and an easy way.
Me and P are going to be butterflies.
That's my fantasy, but I think that really depends on whether people stand up and be counted or not, or or whether we're just easily led.
I think personally, we've got a road that is a lot longer than we actually anticipate. In the sense that, for me, what needs to happen is that all the world needs to industrialize before a community that is, call it common equal society, whatever you want to call it. Before that happens, the whole world needs to industrialize. When businesses have nowhere to last stand, and then it's only then that war effectively is going to be either won or lost, and most probably, loss for capitalism because it's not sustainable without a poor place in the world to treat as their slave yard. Because I've been noticed that businesses that were in the UK, then when the UK workers got rights, they went to Europe. When they got rights, they went to Asia. Now they're getting rights, they went to somewhere else, and they're just moving from one place to another. But as soon as they run out of a slave part in society, they can't run anywhere, and that's when they're gonna have to start fighting to destroy our rights, and that's where we're gonna have to directly start fighting back, and that's when I think the final sort of front's gonna come from, and if we're gonna go from one side or another. So I think we still got a long way to go.
Yeah, I think
personally, I think it's gonna be a positive end.
I don't think it'll be in our lifetime.
Huh? No, God, no.
I don't think that will be in our lifetime. But that's the now is where you lay the foundations.
So
exactly.
what about the risk of, say, World War III happening like quite soon? The way that they're trying to make people aware and saying that basically Obama, what he's saying about going into World War III and that priming us and prepping us for a war. How soon do you think that'll sort of?
You see, I don't know if there is going to be a World War III, because although America is stupid and desperate enough to go to war, other countries are now smarter. Europe will not just blindly follow America. To give you an
Look
example,
at what Russia's done. Look at what Russia's done. They've flicked him and flicked him and flicked him, haven't they? And he has pretty much stood quite. He's done well. I think he's done well.
Putin is that. I mean, if you look at, Putin's prediction has come up to a T, because Putin's been saying that the current Ukrainian government is not. The US has always been saying, Russia's going to invade, Russia's going to try and take over the Ukraine, blah, 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 etc. What has just been revealed, I think it was last week, is that the Ukraine government have now banned free speech and banned the right to protest. So what Putin has been saying all along has actually come true. And now the only safe and democratic part of the Ukraine, ironically, is the eastern part and Crimea. Everywhere else has got ridiculous amounts of militants running around with, surprise, surprise, guns made in the US. So although America is gunning for a war because they need a war to sustain, because the only way America is going to save their economy is if they go to war. They need
exactly the same Israel have. Exactly the same Israel have.
Exactly.
Malaysia have actually reported it was America that shot down that plane.
Yeah.
And the Ukraine. That's how Malaysia are reporting it in their press.
Reporting what? Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
The Malaysian airline that went down, that they said that Russia shot down.
Oh, the Malaysian.
The Malaysian press have been saying that it was the US and the Ukraine that shot that plane down.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can believe that easily.
I think we all believe that.
I mean, that is something that, where it was a stray missile in Ukraine, I don't see it. I see it as another US tactic to try and shoot something down to try and start a war.
Yeah, they've been gunning for it for ages.
Huh?
They've been gunning for it for ages, and you have to think that part of this is the BRICS and the petrodollar.
What, the Brazil, Russia, China, and what's the other one?
India, is it?
Yeah, that's the one. BRICS, yeah. Yeah, it's because they are independent and they can do what they want. The US don't like that, because before the US, everything the US said was law. Every other country had to follow what the US said. And
I
the
think
US
you're right.
down.
I think it's possible Russia knows that the demise of the US comes from allowing them to keep going as they are and allowing them to flick his nose. I think he knows he will gain a hell of a lot more by not allowing the war.
I think he knows
and I
that.
think he's got smart. Yeah.
I think that he knows that half the people in England, half the people in America are watching Russia today, and they're actually siding with him on a lot of things. I'm not saying he's perfect, because he's
still a politician.
Yeah, And it's,
But
you know, but I'm just saying that.
Perfect. It's all about finding who is actually standing up partially for the rights that you're trying to fight for at that very moment. The lesser of the two evils, as such. In this case, funnily enough, the lesser between Obama and Putin, I'm sorry, is Putin. Proven that his goals, whatever those goals may be, because they're not humanitarian by all means, he doesn't give a crap about humanitarian goals, but the point is that his goals, whatever they may be, are coinciding with humanitarian aid and humanitarian goals. Whereas America's because they believe that if they manage to win the people's support over, they could keep the country. You funded terrorist organizations, which prove Machiavelli right. You know, fear is stronger than love, because in fact they just turn massively into fear, and then you find therefore people for Russia.
Who knows where it's all going to go?
No.
It's an interesting time,
you know, I read about, you know, like airstrikes in Syria, and they were like, if Syria hits back, blah blah blah. But surely, if America start bombing like strategic things against the Assad regime, that they would have some kind of grounds for retaliation.
So what happens if the US decides to just simply attack Russia? When, say, they create a false flag for Russia, what if they just do that? Russia would have no choice but to retaliate and to defend itself.
Well, I think the problem is that they want Russia to be the bad guy, and that's why they keep baiting them, Putin into things. But he's not biting.
No.
Yeah, they need Russia
because he knows that.
Go on.
He knows that a lot of the American people and a lot of the British people are disillusioned with all the wars and things like that, and that must offer him a certain amount of security in the fact that he knows that we're going to stand up against, like we did with Syria and things. I don't think we'd have supported, you know, people going into Russia.
No.
Especially because Russia is not going to go hands down like a country like Syria and stuff. I mean, that would be an equal war. Because let's not forget that what we're doing at the moment with Syria, Afghanistan, it's like in the Empire days when we went into Africa. I mean, they were fighting machine guns against sticks. Now it's the same thing.
Yeah, it is.
Don't stand a chance. Whereas because Russians don't joke with their military either. In fact, it's probably at not at the level of the US, by all means, but it's at the level of Britain and probably beats British armed forces. So we would never be able to go into Russia simply like that, and the US would never be able to just allow it. It would never be able to just declare war because Congress just wouldn't allow it, because it'd be a suicide act. They need support. They need coalitions, and other countries wouldn't be happy to go to war with America unless Russia were the aggressor. And as you said, he's not biting at the moment. Let's hope he never does.
Yeah.
So what if
he knows what their game is? It's like a game of chess. You just got to think of it all like they're all just positioning their pawns ready for their next move. It's a game.
That's what it is. It is a game of chess. That's exactly what politics is.
And then you watch Korea just come out and go pow. You're like, no.
Korea is the only wild card though, because Russia openly supports what's it called? No, sorry, that's China that openly supports Korea.
Yeah.
Russia doesn't. I don't think Russia really cares much about North Korea, to be honest. I don't think there are many connections between them two. Apart from the fact that they both come from an old communist regime, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Connection-wise. But that would give the US a validation. So if North Korea do something stupid, that would give them a good way to effectively blame everything on Russia, saying, "Oh, it's Russia acting through North Korea."
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a number of ways they could bring it on. I know. There's a number of ways they're going to push, but we've got plenty more of USA stunts, I suppose.
I think it must be quite a bit of a shock actually to the world powers at the moment how people aren't falling for the same bullshit that they would have filed for 10 years ago. How tired we are of war and how we look deeper than what they're telling us when it comes to things. I think we've been led up the garden path too much, where, you know, weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that, that people are wisening up to their tactics. It's not as easy as it once was. Because they would have been in Syria.
Yeah.
When that vote went to vote in America and England, both of them a few years ago would just have gone ahead of that, regardless of what the parliaments.
Like Iraq.
I mean,
Gaza,
I think Iraq.
I think Gaza was supposed to be further along, and we weren't supposed to oppose that neither. I think we pissed them off with that. We should have just not cared by now.
But,
Floron should have kicked in.
And the anti-Muslim that is being spouted as well, that maybe we weren't supposed to actually see them as anything other than Muslims who are our enemies.
Yeah. And that's just not been the case. And this Gaza thing is actually, I think it's backstepped them. I think it's backstepped them because I don't, especially like in my community, I've managed to, you know, get in contact and start making connections and bonding with the Muslim community, and they're now the main sort of people who I see in Peterborough and communicate with, and we do rallies and demos together. And I think it's a very dangerous connection for the governments and the corporations, because we weren't supposed to do that. We're supposed to hate them.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've got to shoot off, but
Yeah.
It's
Been good
nice
talking to you
again.
Pardon?
Yeah. Been good talking to you again.
You too. And we'll see you guys next week.
See you later.
And see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. I always leave the call normal. Oh, P.